Hello, hello, everybody. Hello. It is a beautiful, beautiful um, Thursday here in the Pacific Northwest. The sun is out. You can see it behind me. That's um, that's a miracle. um, we all are happy when that happens. So I'm super excited to jump on here today. I was really inspired to jump on. I was asked to do a presentation about teens and social media. I had touched upon it during the Campus Wellness Festival. We kind of talked about it during the closing panel. And then the Ridgefield School District invited me up to their safety night a couple weeks ago now to talk about teens and social media. So I'm starting to make my way through Cascadia here talking about teens and social media. And I just felt really inspired. I wanted to jump on, much to my daughter's dismay, because when she was like, "Oh, you're going to talk about social media again, Mom? You're going to ruin it for all my friends." I'm like, exactly. I knew I was hitting the right thing when I realized it would probably make her mad. So in that spirit of making my preteen unhappy, what's new, I wanted to kind of address some stuff on social media. And part of this inspiration was I was up a few nights ago, and I'm on my phone. I'm just kind of reading some articles, and it was about 10:30 at night, which for me is very late. God knows I'm in bed by 9, but I couldn't sleep because I over-caffeinated, and I was noticing my daughter's Instagram account is tied to my Instagram account. So when her kid or her friends go live, or they're online or they're active, I get notifications on my phone. And here it is, 10:30 on a Tuesday night, and like 3 or 4 of her friends were online and doing live videos and all this stuff at 10:30 on a Tuesday night. And call me old-fashioned, but in my mind, these kids should be sleeping. And so that just kind of rang some bells for me. And I thought, I'm just going to jump online real quickly and throw this out here. So one of the things that I talk about in my presentation is having parents really identify all the types of social media. I think that parents think of social media and they think of like Instagram, or they think of Facebook. Right? That's social media, Instagram and Facebook. But they also don't think of things like YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat. Kids are on Snapchat, folks. Yes, it happens, and especially Snapchat. There's some really scary stuff happening there. TikTok. A lot of people don't know what TikTok is, and that's unfortunate because that's a huge platform. TikTok is what Musical.ly used to be. It's been renamed TikTok. And it's a huge multi-million user platform. They also have all kinds of interesting little private rooms and chats in various different apps on their phone. So I invite everybody to look at your child's phone and see what's been downloaded on that. What is the one called to? It's I'm just learning about the Party House or something like that. And it's an app that they go and they have these group chats in. So know what's on your child's phone, first and foremost, and understand what all forms of social media are. Because if there's a form of social media, that means that there's typically some kind of an inbox or a private message or a DM, direct message component to that. And that's where a lot of the action happens for these kids. And we talk about Facebook, and Facebook, of course, the biggest platforms being Facebook and Instagram that our kids are on. Typically our kids are supposed to be 13 or older before they're on these sites. And that's really changed a lot, especially just as this generation, and I'm talking, preteen, like our middle schoolers and high schoolers now, they're really on social media. And they've always known social media. And the reason that they always know social media is because we have modeled this behavior to our children. Why? Because we're on social media, right? And it just is now a part of our lives. For me, I was born in the analog generation. So, I had to make a mixtape on the radio, if I wanted to get music. Now everything's at the drop of a button, right? Spotify and iTunes and things like that. So there's just, this is their generation, and things are done differently and will continue to evolve. And so for us, it can be a little hard to sit back and go, all these kids aren't playing outside anymore and they're just on their phones. That really is for their generation, is just the way that their culture is running. So how do we adapt to this new style of technology and understand some of the consequences? The good and bad news is that now social media and smartphones and things of that nature have been out long enough for us to have some data and for us to be able to see some stuff about what's happening and the residual effects of social media. So one of the things that they've termed Facebook depression, so the American Academy of Pediatrics it's a term, and it's not classified in the DSM, but it is a term used like on the download clinically called Facebook depression. And it's when teenagers start to exhibit classic symptoms of depression as a result of their relationship with social media, and typically Facebook. So in particular, Facebook can tend to make our kids feel inadequate, and that can be really challenging. So it can have the opposite effect of where we hope that our kids are connecting and they're having great conversations and things of that nature. It's going to boost those low morale feelings. It's going to boost those inadequacy feelings. So it's kind of this interesting effect where if children already have these positive feelings about themselves, it actually could boost those as well. So the kids that already feel good and go on social media, they're feeling better. They're like, oh, I'm a boss. Look at me, all these likes. Woo, everybody loves me. So it has this opposite effect. But if your kid is already struggling with anxiety or depression or has some kind of mental health diagnosis, or you're seeing symptoms, then it's time to kind of pause and take a look, right? Because then we're really talking about how our children are internalizing what they're seeing. Because we know as adults that most people just put their best foot forward on social media. And we know that people use, attention-seeking behavior on social media. We know people are doing reassurance-seeking behaviors on social media because we're adults. If you were to go ask a 14-year-old what reassurance-seeking behavior is, they're not going to know. They just know that their friends are putting up, 50 million selfies, and their self-esteem is tied to how many people like that. Right, so that's the problem, is that it gives this deceptive sense of positive self, and that has some real life consequences in terms of depression and anxiety rates among our kids. So according to the Pew Research Center, 73% of teenagers in 2016 had smartphones, and that we know that number is higher. That's a couple years old, right? So what they've shown, researchers, they did a lot of research down at San Diego University, teens that spent more than 5 hours a day online, which is not hard to do anymore. A lot of kids do it, and I'm definitely, calling myself out on that one. On the weekends, I'm, lazing around and my kids on TikTok and doing these things and watching YouTube videos, all that stuff, right? 5 hours can go by like that if they're on at, 8 a.m. and then it's already noon, and then you're like, okay, let's go do something. That's like, 4 hours right there. Boom, it happens quickly. But what we know is that there's a risk factor for suicide, a higher risk factor for suicide for kids that do this, especially over the long term, versus a child that only spends 1 hour a day online. So it's increasing suicidal risk for our teens. And when we think about the increase that we see across the board in teen suicidality, well, there's probably a link to the social media risks as well. So, we know now that there is links and risk factors involved in social media and our teens' mental health. So what does that really, really mean? Are our kids going to be able to avoid social media? No. It's just, it's a sign of the times that it's here. But how do we help them manage it as parents? And I think a lot of parents have forgot that they are the parent, and they can manage the access to social media. And there are so many amazing tools and apps nowadays. Verizon, they have their family access application. You pay a little bit a month, but what it does is it shuts down social media access at a certain time. It's a parental control. And it's okay to have parental controls over your children's social media access. And I really want to empower parents to understand it's okay. You don't have to micromanage their social media access. They do, it does give them a little bit of autonomy to be able to decipher that. But remember, the internet is showing your kid things that you may not be ready to talk about in real life. So it's okay for you to know what's going on. And it's okay to do random checks, to go into their phone, look through their social media, look through their text messages, look through their DMs. A lot of people will say to me, well, I follow my kid on social media and I'm not seeing anything I should be worried about. Of course, because a lot of stuff happens in the back end, and that's all done through direct messages. And you're following your child on social media, so what you see is what they're putting out. But are you aware of who they're following? I'm going to get a little bit more detailed in just a minute about that. So, setting boundaries is going to be critical. Making sure that they're using the phone at certain times in appropriate ways. That's okay. It's okay to say, my daughter has a 7:30 curfew with her phone. She's 11. She's the only one with that kind of curfew on her phone out of her little buddy group, right? So she always gets mad, and it's okay for her to be mad at me because I have to set those limits. I know that she needs downtime. Her brain needs to destimulate from that technology. And it is my job as a parent, because I understand the bigger picture, to put those limits. And when children have boundaries, it teaches them responsibility. This is something she has to be responsible for and with. And if she's not, the consequence is that she loses it. No child ever died because they didn't have access to their social media. I'll tell you, at least if somebody has, let me know, because to my knowledge at this point, no one's died from losing their iPhone for the evening. Making sure that they charge their phone outside of their bedroom. That's a huge one. Their phone doesn't get charged in their room, period. It's way too tempting. If a child especially wakes up at the night to use the bathroom, they go in, they see this little flashing light, oh, I got a message, or oh, something came in. They're gonna check it. They just don't have the impulse control. They're curious. We do it as adults. So take the phone out of the room. Create a charging station in your home. Have a place maybe in your dining room where all the electronics go to charge at the end of the day. It's not their room. Take it out of their room. Are they going to fight you on this? Of course. And if you've let them have it in their room and you take it away, are they going to fight you on this? Yes. But know that you are doing this because you understand the bigger picture. And if they don't, they're just going to feel like they're being punished, and have an open conversation with them. So ask questions, have those open conversations, talk often about social media. You don't have to micromanage it, but ask questions. So, what's happening on Instagram, or, do you know anybody that's getting bullied online, or has anybody ever said anything rude to you online, or things of that you just kind of start to have those conversations. And if you have them often enough, then they don't feel weird. What you want to do is have them often enough to where it just becomes part of the dialogue in your home, versus like, mom's asking me about, Facebook. Yeah, right? It's just becomes a natural part of discussion, just as how was your day at school? Remember, these kids are on social media, and that means that school's coming home with them, right? When we were kids, we left school at home. We shut our front doors, and if God forbid we were being bullied, we didn't have to deal with that in our home. But now social media opens a door for bullying to happen at home. And and if they are tied to their phone, that means they're not getting away from that either. So what do you look for? What are some symptoms to look for? Oh, my kid does well. Is she on social media too much? Is it, what symptoms are you talking about, Kimberly? So just common symptoms to look for, in terms of, so, if you notice that your child is on social media a lot and is starting to compare herself to her peers in a negative way, look for those feelings of hopelessness, loss of their daily normal activities, irritability. And that's a big one, because a lot of people think, oh, they're just being a teenager. That's true, they could be, or they could be just being a teenager. So ask questions, and that going back to having a dialogue. If they're being really snappy, wait for them to de-escalate and then engage them in the conversation. It seems like lately you've been a little irritable, and I'm just curious, is something going on that we haven't talked about yet? Or are you struggling with something right now that I could help you with? I know you may not want to talk to me. I'm mom, I get it. But I'm just a little concerned, and I'm wondering what we can do to sit back and help you kind of manage this. Right? Just have those conversations. Sometimes it's not just angsty teen stuff. We got to dive deeper. Weight loss, weight gain, fatigue, Feelings of worthlessness, that's huge. You know, I'm watching Johnny and Sue go on another grandiose vacation, and they're living this life that I think I want, and they have the best selfies, and oh my God, you know, so-and-so and so-and-so went to the mall together and they even asked me, and I feel like a total piece of garbage. No one likes me. I have no friends. That's very common when you're comparing yourself against the pictures that's painted in social media. If they're having difficulty concentrating or making decisions, complaints, physical complaints, my tummy hurts, I have a headache. You know, the tummy thing is a big thing I hear in my house. When anxiety comes knocking at the door, it usually comes knocking at the door through the stomach. But headaches too, or I'm tired, I'm so tired. You know, fatigue from depression, that physical fatigue that is symptomatic of depression. You know, and sometimes it's thoughts of death or suicide. And social media is unfortunately a place that our children are going to broadcast how unhappy they are. And I know from personal experience that I have read posts from children in middle school and in high school talking about how they're over this life and they're done. And I was lucky enough to see those, so I was able to go ahead and get a hold of the parents to let them know this is the cry for help. So if we're going to talk about stereotypes and the cry for help in terms of suicide, that's it. That's the flag. That's red flag. Someone, you know, your child's saying that she's over this. So sick of this life. Oh my God, you know, no one loves me, right? That type of stuff. They're posting that in social media. They may not be posting it in their timeline, but they're posting it in their story, which is where we saw this on an Instagram story, for example, right? So that story's gonna be nuked in 24 hours. But anybody that saw that, right? But the problem is that they're posting it in the first place. And so are we aware of that? Are we paying attention? So, you know, going back to those feelings of unworthiness is really from that kind of imposter syndrome standpoint that these children, you know, are seeing these amazing lives and they don't understand that there's a backstory, and everybody has a life behind closed doors. All they're seeing are this positive imagery, and they're comparing themselves to that, especially girls. It also is teaching our children in indirect communication, and our children are losing the ability to sit down and have direct conversations. We as people are, right? But I think something about our generation, at least we had that skill set, regardless if we chose to use it. We had more access to building that skill set. Our children aren't. So, you know, they're on the couch and they're still on their phones instead of talking to each other. So they're not able to learn these direct communication styles that actually help nurture relationships. And a lot of people will say things online that they would never say in real life, right? So then we have trolling. And a lot of people hear the terminology trolling, but maybe are not sure what that is. Now, to me, the easiest way to simplify what trolling is anytime anybody starts to be inflammatory on a post or comment or suggestion towards you, that is inciting a negative response, you know, anger or irritability reaction. And sometimes it happens, and there's a difference between when somebody posts someone or something without thinking, right? Somebody can post something and they're just coming maybe matter-of-factly, right? But trolling, really the pure intention is to instigate. And I think that's, you know, kind of sets the differences. You know, did she say this just kind of out of ignorance, or, you know, wasn't thinking, or, you know, or is this person really trying to piss you off purposely? And yes, there are people out there that do that. You know, that's just a reality. There are people out there that are just going to be jerks. So how do we mitigate that? We know as adults, but are we teaching our children, what do you do if you get trolled? You know, what do you say back? Or how do you block somebody? Does your child know how to block somebody? Can you show me how to block somebody? Because my child probably knows better than I do. But, you know, it's just those things, right, that we don't think about in terms of social media. We're more concerned about our kids getting inappropriate sexual content. But, you know, the harassment and the cyberbullying is a huge problem. You know, girls are social creatures especially, and they really tie their self-esteem into social media. And we, you know, and one thing that I kind of wanted to read, there was some quotes from Dr. Steiner there, and I kind of wanted to read this here just so I didn't mess it up. It says, we forget that relational aggression comes from insecurity and feeling awful about yourself and wanting to put other people down so you feel better, right? So we have this huge concept of, you know, they're putting you down because they want to feel better about themselves. But a 12-year-old doesn't get that. They just know that they're being called every name in the book and it's making them feel bad, right? So helping them to, help, empowering yourself as a parent to understand the bigger picture of why it's happening, and then helping your child mitigate that if it's happening to them. Take it seriously. Cyberbullying is serious. We see a lot of people engage in self-harming behaviors. It takes anxiety to a different level. And it's something that we, as parents, again, can be empowered to cut access off to. Cyberbullying is because our children have access to that social media platform. And if that's becoming a problem, it's okay to cut that snake off at the head, right? So just, again, being empowered and asking questions. The more you talk about social media and ask questions, just as you would, how was your trip to the mall with so-and-so? It engages conversations and you're going to extract information in a new way. So being stalking and being ignored are these two interesting phenomenons as well, right? We talk about cyber stalking and these kids not letting people alone and just constantly being up in their business. Our kids are never alone. Again, their phones are always with them, so they're always constantly tied. So text messaging, all of that stuff, there's always something that it feels like something's happening. And then we have this FOMO, the fear of missing out. We see hashtag FOMO. So that's created this like hypersensitivity to not sensitivity, but just a hyperactivity around being on their phones because they don't want to miss anything. What was the newest post? Who's dating who? Who said this about who? It's insane. It's insane to me sometimes. And then think of, the kids that are being ignored. So you have these kids that are being praised and liked and loved and hearts and comments and engagement on their social media posts. But what about the kids that don't get that and they get ignored? It's very easy for all of these kids, no matter what side of the fence they land on, to become really depleted quickly. How many people here could really use a digital detox, right? It becomes emotionally depleting for these children, but they don't have the vocabulary to understand that, or the knowledge or life experience to say, I'm emotionally depleted from social media, right? They just know that they're tired, and then they're tired and they're gonna get cranky and irritable, and they're gonna yell at you about something because they've been on their phone all night, and then you're in another argument with your child, and and so on and so on and so on. So, technology can be a wonderful thing, and social media can connect people and bring all parts of the world into your living room, which can be very cool, right? I love social media. I get to, interact with people and meet people in a wonderful way, right? But we have to make sure that everything is appropriate for our children the best we can, right? So remember that the more information that your children are exposed to, and when they're on the internet, they're exposed to everything, depending on your own core values, your own family values, and your child's personality, you're going to have to use high levels of discernment about what they should and should not have access to. Just because your kid is 12 and everybody else has a phone doesn't mean that your child is appropriately emotionally developed enough to. And making sure that your children are exposed to things that they can respond to in an appropriate way, right? So they can answer, or you can ask anything. You can ask Google anything, right, online. It doesn't mean that they're going to get an appropriate answer depending on where they are developmentally. So just remember that, you get to create the narrative according to your own values and what your children are exposed to. And if they're online, they're exposed to anything, right? And that means that they may not get an answer that's appropriate for them. So couple things I want to leave you with here. Do you have the passwords to all of your children's social media accounts? If you don't, you should. And if they don't want you to, again, that's okay. They want a sense of privacy. And again, having that conversation, I'm not here to violate your privacy, but I am your parent and I need to oversight. Just as if would you have a bunch of your kids, let's take 12-year-olds. Would you have 6 12-year-olds in your house at midnight without you here, unsupervised? No, you wouldn't. If your child had friends spending the night, would you then leave on vacation? No, right? When my kid goes to their friend's house, is their parent home, right? Why? supervision. We want to have oversight somehow and make sure that our kids are safe. Why do we not do that with social media? Have the passwords to the accounts, right? Just non-negotiable. These are non-negotiable things. Understand what they follow and understand how to get into their direct messages. Understand that a lot happens in the direct messages. They will have group chats in their DMs. So it's not just one person, but there'll be like many people in a thread. So, you know, feel free to go through those, see what's happening. Not only will it give you insight to your own child, it will give you insight to their friends and their circle of friends and what kind of influence is happening and what they're being exposed to that they're not telling you. That's super important to understand what your children are really talking about versus what they're going to tell you they're talking about. Last but not least, I kind of talked about, you know, what they follow and a lot of things that parents don't understand. So I wanted to use this example here locally. There is a Instagram. This is on Instagram, and I don't believe it's on Facebook, but on Instagram, there are many accounts called Dips and Ships. And a lot of people don't know what dips and ships are. So the kids get clever and they open and shut down these accounts. And it will say their like middle school name, dips and ships, or their middle school name or their high school name, you know, underscore dip, underscore ship. But what that is, dips and ships, and my kid's gonna kill me for this, it is a site where it's managed by a kid in the middle school. I know this happens in my daughter's middle school. And it happens in high schools and middle schools all around. We're not the only one that does it. What they do is it's ran by a kid, and they take 2 pictures up. You can submit or they can be picked, and then they're put together and thrown up on Instagram, and then you can either comment if they should dip or ship. Now, of course, a dip means that person should not be touched, and a ship is relationships, right? Dip or ship. And depending on if the child has given permission, which doesn't always happen, it can be devastating for that child. I know it happened to one of my daughter's friends. You know, her picture was put up there, and you know, everybody was like, ship and dip, and oh my God, don't ship her, and oh, dip, definitely. You know, all of that negative. She read it, she was devastated, right? So this type of stuff is happening online. This is just a perfect example of some of the things that if you're not understanding what your children follows and why that's just as important as what they're posting, you know, it can be devastating. Now I make sure that she's not on there, at least, you know, the best of my ability, and that's all we can do. But our kids' worthiness should not be associated with a like. No kid should be dipped, shipped, disliked, frowny face. You know, I mean, we're so much more dynamic as people. So are we teaching our children that? So I just wanted to come on here real quickly. I guess it's not really quickly. It's been a while, huh? It's, oh my God, almost a half an hour. Woo! Well, thank you for everybody that joined me. I hope you catch us on the replay. I hope this was helpful just to kind of get an overview about social media, why it's important, how it's affecting our kids. We know it affects their mental health, and some tips on how you can get a little bit more assertive and understanding what's happening with your children's social media accounts. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. Love you, everybody. And of course, you can always find me at www.beinganormal.com. I look forward to talking with you guys soon, and check you on the flip side. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.